2011 Radnor Township Shade Tree Commission meeting. We have 4 items on the agenda this evening. The first one being 40 Luella Court. It's a confirmation of a previous decision in the removal of 11 trees and planting of 18 trees. Could the representative for 40 Luella Court please come to the podium?
Good evening. Kaz Holloway, C.F. Holloway III and Company. We're equitable owners of 40 Luella Court. And we are here again this evening at the request of the Township. Apparently, the neighbors weren't given notice of the agenda. It wasn't posted on the website. Okay. So we've agreed to come back and listen to any comments or questions they may have. All I have to add, our arborist is here again this evening, and the Dave Falcone from Saul Ewing. So they're both here to answer any questions that might arise. I would like our arborist to come up because he's done some additional testing that he can share with you. My main thing is there was a lot of concern about the beach at our last meeting, and there was a request by this board, actually a condition of our approval, that we move the circle in our concept landscape plan that shows the London plane trees and the Coosa dogwoods. There was a direct request that we stay not only out of the drip line root system of the Copper Beach, but redirect the turnaround that we were showing for our ADA pull-off in front of the north entrance. For everyone, for the neighbors who are here and they weren't here at the last meeting, what I'll do is just show, turn around. This is the large Copper Beach. As we testified at the last meeting, there was a large cavity. We were very concerned, but our arborist assured us that the tree is healthy. It has really grown back together in the weakest part, so it's stronger. And once we found that out, it still has a cavity, but that, I don't want to speak for the arborist, but the cavity does not pose a problem to the tree. So the biggest concern we had, well, how do we protect the root system? And we found out that, I found out that the root system actually extends beyond the drip line. This is our pull-off area. And what we wanted to do, since there's, Luella Court is one way, and permit parking is allowed on the outside of the loop of Luella Court. That means that if a car stops to let somebody off at the front door, they would stop traffic behind. So we wanted to have a pull-off so that cars and wheelchairs could get out without impeding traffic. What this board asked us to do, the condition of the approval, was to move this pull-off away from the beach. Even though it wouldn't be centered on the front door, you asked us to move it in this direction here. And what I'd like to do, we actually submitted a plan to this board last week in time for tonight's meeting. Yeah. So what we've done is we have start at the pull-off at the existing parking lot entrance that exists on the property right now, right here. And the pull-off will go around and then circle back, and we'll be able to save the 2 cherry trees. There was also testimony at the last month's meeting that this board would rather see the 2 cherry trees go as opposed to the have any potential damage with the root system of the copper beech. So this is our pull-off area now, and what we are showing is the existing walkways that exist around the copper beech. Our arborist was adamant not to, we were considering doing a sidewalk around the curb area for not only the residents but also the neighbors. And we were told under no circumstances could we put in a new sidewalk along that curb because it posed too much of a threat to the root system of the copper beech. So I'm hoping some of the neighbors that are here this evening will be happy to hear that we will be keeping this walkway that exists right now. Main reason we were told, other than refurbishing it, it's block, it's pavers. We're going to level it and make it nice and neat, but we are not going to disturb any of the root system around that copper beech. So we thought it was important to demonstrate what our intent is to address the condition that this board asked us to address. Okay, so with that, I think that's the only new information I have to provide the board. If you would like to have our arborist speak now, or
Yeah, okay, I think it'd be wise.
Dean.
Good evening. My name is Dean Deal, certified arborist with Shriner Tree Care. Last week I wasn't prepared to show you a graft that I had last month. I wasn't prepared to show you a graft that I had done with a tool called a resistograph.
Right.
The oak, the biggest one on the east end of the property, I can't show it up there.
Okay.
However, it has and I'm not going to give you the scientific name unless you ask for it, but that's your prerogative. There's a red conch on the west side.
Okay.
There's 2 white conchs on the northwest side and on the north side. When I drilled with this tool, it's a needle-like device, into the areas where they are, the white conchs produce no readings that were abnormal. Where the red conch was, I didn't find any good wood as deep as my tool would go. The white conchs look like that on the west and the northwest side. And this terribly dark, when I looked at it first last month, it was red. It's fading away now. It'll start growing again next spring. There's a circle that I drew there, and that's where I put the tool in and drilled 15 inches in and found no good wood. I have the graphs to show that. The only other thing that's pictured on that picture is the dead oak that's out by the street, and that needs no further. If you have any questions, I'll answer anything you have.
Okay. Is this in the red or black oak family, do you know?
The one that's dead, I don't know. The one that I drilled is a pin oak.
A pin oak. Okay, well, that's in the red oak family.
Yes.
Okay. The resistograph process that this gentleman is referring to, in essence, is a small drill, and it has somewhat of a camera at the very end of the drill. And they can pass that very tiny drill through the tree. And they pull information out of that drilling and download it onto a computer, and it produces a graph that shows you where good wood is and where there isn't any good wood. It's a very sound, reliable testing system. The fact that he's drilling into a portion of a root system and can't find good growth is an indication that tree is very weak and is probably hazardous. Pardon?
Which trees is he talking about?
He's talking about a pin oak. If he could, if you,
Can you put it on the, can you do it on the thing?
So which ones are the ones that you were saying?
This one?
Just that one
Yes,
that has the problem?
correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dean showed the dead oak.
Right. Well, I know which one is the dead.
You're right.
I think we all do.
okay. Okay. Is there any other representation from Cass's group here that wants to speak first? Okay, well then, comments from the community. If you could step to the podium and announce your name and where you live, please.
My name is Judy Strimmel. I live at 47 Luella Court. Needless to say that the big tree has always been my concern, but as are all of the other trees. Not the one that's dead that we all can look at and know that it needs to come down before it falls on somebody's house.
Right.
Now, there's another one that I'm sure is correct that should come down. There are people here tonight who are going to speak about specifics. I sort of want to speak apocryphally and suburban legend and let the others speak more specifically. First of all, I grew up on over 4,000 acres on Martha's Vineyard. My father was the person who planted that forest, both on Martha's Vineyard and on Nantucket. He was probably the first conservationist on those two islands. He would roll over in his grave to think that we are allowing people to cut down trees and replace them with quote-unquote condo trees. It is totally unnecessary. He sat on 6 different towns' shade tree commissions, and their job was to continue to provide shade trees to the residents and shade to the residents of those communities. Now, I will tell you a story. The other day, a couple of weeks ago, when we had those first hot days, my granddaughter had spent the night. She wanted to go for a walk. I said, okay, but we need to walk in the shade. Walked around Luella, and suddenly I realized that there will be no shade once those trees are all chopped down. What is the charge of the Shade Tree Committee? To allow trees to be cut down and replaced with condo trees that may be 150 years from now the size of what's there now, long after my lifetime, long after my daughter's, long after my granddaughter's lifetime. Is the charge of the Shade Tree Committee to preserve shade trees in the Township of Radnor?
Yeah, the overall charge is to promote the preservation of trees and the proper maintenance of trees and the planting of trees. Those are the three charges. The preservation of trees, when it comes to a private property owner, there is allowances to permit them to remove trees if they replant a certain diameter in a formula related to the trees that are being taken down. And that's done all the time in Radnor and many other shade tree committees.
So I guess I come from communities where the shade trees were to be preserved at any cost. I mean, I also came from a community where the Dutch elm had taken out many, many trees. And again, apocryphally, I understand that there were ones along Lancaster Avenue that were to be taken down because of the Dutch elm disease. But someone didn't get that message and just came along and cut them all down. I don't know if that's true. That may be the apocryphal part of my conversation. So it is not your charge, therefore, what I'm hearing you say is that shade trees that shade the streets are not part of your charge. Because condo trees are not going to shade the street.
No, street trees are definitely within our jurisdiction. The trees that we're discussing here are not street trees. Street trees are trees that literally line the streets.
Well, these line the streets that we're talking about chopping down.
Not in the right of way.
Well, their shade covers the right of way. So I guess maybe that's where I don't have the proper information. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying? That if even though they shade the street that I'm talking about, that is not within your purview to protect.
No, we're not here to necessarily protect them. I mean, if, again, a land developer or homeowner or whatever, has trees on their property, not in the right-of-way, but on their property, they have the right to come before us and request removal of those trees. And once they request that, then we have a formula that says, okay, if you're going to remove that many, you have to replant this many.
But
that's the way the ordinance is created.
Okay, the ordinance does not demand that you
save each and every tree.
The shade tree that shades the right-of-way streets.
No.
Okay, that's where I guess I am confused, because I come from a background where that was the purview of the Shade Tree Commission. Again, not apocryphal, but unfortunately, truthfully, when I moved to my house, I lived in a house that behind me was a piece of property that had great huge trees that you couldn't get your arms around. And that owner was able to get Amtrak to take them down. Now, they were not shade trees. It just seems as though this township allows the cutting down of trees without any consideration to what it does to the people of Radnor. And I'm very saddened by that and concerned about that. I know you didn't have any control over what Amtrak allowed to have happen, but now I feel like you do have control over trees that are 100 years old, 70 feet high, and we're just going to chop them down and put in little condo trees. None of us in that neighborhood wants to see that happen. We live in an historic district, and it would strike me that you have a particular charge to be concerned about that in this historic district we can cut down historic trees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Falcone, on behalf of Cass Holloway, just to address some of the issues that were just brought up with respect to condo trees. I don't know if the ordinance has a definition for a condo tree, but the sycamores that Mr. Holloway is proposing to plant are large, expensive, stately trees that will provide great shade when they mature. And with respect to this commission's charge, the arborist has made it very clear to me that Radnor Township has one of the toughest shade tree standards in the state, and Mr. Holloway will meet those standards. So I think it's important that the record be clear. Mr. Holloway is not planting shrubs and taking down huge trees. He's planting large sycamores in accordance with a standard established by the township. So I think that's just important to recognize. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Cynthia Munger from 31 Luella Court. And first of all, I want to thank you for letting us have this opportunity
Sure.
to talk. I really do. And I also want to say we've been down the pike and back 100 times. And for all of us, I know it's difficult. And I just want to reference that. We went out, and the association retained an arborist to come in and sort of help us understand. And I'd like to say to Mr. Deal, correct? That they were in agreement on many counts, and that was good, especially about that gorgeous pin oak, which breaks our heart that we don't have tightening enough of ordinance to make people care for their trees. To Mr. Falcone's point, I have to tell you, I came from Hinsdale, Illinois, and we had tree police, and I would have been severely fined for that pin oak being in that shape. So there are tighter ordinances. But to this point, I think one of the things that we're concerned about, and it is going to be addressed later, but we're talking about destroying gorgeous shade trees before we know whether or not this garage can be built. This partially submerged garage that we're talking about can actually be built, and you're here to protect. Second, Cass mentioned in the video, and I thought it was a great statement. He said that, one of the reasons we want to keep the Copper Beech is because it has such a majestic framing of the historic mansion. Well, you go back to the pictures, and unfortunately, I am assuming you were all there to see this, right? Everybody was on the property to see how they looked? Yeah, okay, so everyone's been there. Well, then you have to know that there's a significant number of those trees that are as majestic in terms of framing from Lancaster Avenue. And when they're gone, there's going to be a huge hole. And yes, there is a recommendation for trees to replace them. But there's two issues that our arborist had talked to us about that I thought was very telling. He said, you've got this kind of design of mixed historic, try to keep the ones around the front and the Copper Beech, and then suddenly you turn into what we're calling, and I'm sorry if we don't know what else to call it, all the little trees lined up in a row of the same type that we classify as a condo park. And when I went back and looked at a lot of the Chanticleer pictures and just hundreds of pictures, and when I was back on my college campus, what struck us? What really was gorgeous was the fact we had all this proliferation of mixed breeds. And it wasn't all these trees lined up in a row. So we have to look at it from a couple of perspectives. One, how can you have the front that's facing Lancaster still maintain some of these majestic trees? You grab the Copper Beech, which was sort of like an afterthought, because originally there is a video that discussed it as coming down, and we've been very diligent in making sure that it was addressed. And then suddenly we hit all the trees in a row. It just is totally incongruent, and I feel like we're back where we were when we were talking about the above-ground garages in an historic district. We're not trying to say we're against restoration. What we're trying to say, we want the experts to help us make sure that we don't have the front with some old trees, shade trees, and the back, little trees all in a row. And I think that's a problem here. Secondly, one of the things we talked about, and I did a lot of research, whether or not rooftop gardens can actually thrive and the amount of work and maintenance that would go into them when, in terms of putting them on top of this garage. It could be very difficult. And it's being passed on to associations. And I don't know if anybody really understands the survival rate of this kind of thing. And I don't know who has the experience. Now, the person we retained had done a lot of work in Boston and in Maryland and does a lot of consulting, and pointed me to some very good research sites. And the jury's kind of out about how hard it is to keep that alive other than turf grass, and that would destroy the historic district. So 2 points. One, please recognize that it seems like we're always at odds, and we do appreciate this chance, but don't make a decision to offer a permit to clear these trees until we know that there is a necessity for them to be cleared other than the ones, that one that is very ill and the other one that he should have taken down. It hasn't had a branch on it for years. And I'm glad, I hope somebody makes that one come down. And the silver maples, they're gorgeous and they're healthy. And they look beautiful. And I just, please consider that we want this historic district to be in full character and not to remove them if you don't have to. Thank you.
Thank you. Cass, do you have any response to?
I'm not in disagreement with most of what the lady said at all. However, these aren't condo trees, whatever they are, and I actually, on this issue, I don't want to take sides about what gets planted. It's just a design that Kaz has versus maybe something the neighbors would want. Mm-hmm. But as far as trees in a row, some of the biggest arboretums in the area, Scott Arboretum at Swarthmore College, their most sought-after view is the swamp white oak alley. It's a big row of trees that were put in the 1800s. So I think it gets down to personal preference, and that's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
The only inaccuracy that I heard was that we were planting these trees on top of the underground garage, which is not true. As this board knows, we submitted the plan of the garage and the trees to come down. All the sycamores are being planted 10 feet off the curb, and they'll be 20 feet at their closest from the garage. Actually, I have the plan here that shows that. So I just, for the record, would like it clear that we are not trying to plant trees, sycamores, or any other trees on top of the garage. This is the footprint of the underground garage. There will be 18 inches of lightweight soil. That's why we show the Victorian garden. You'll notice it's all grass and a beautiful walkway and an area to congregate. And you'll notice that the sycamores line around the entire perimeter, 10 feet off the curb, and will be planted in terra firma in the existing ground, and they will grow, and they will be here for the next 100 and 150 years. So I just would like the record to be clear. Thank you.
How tall are the sycamores that you intend to plant?
We planted sycamores on our 102 Luella. They were 3 to 4 inches in caliber, and they're 20 feet tall. There's 3 of them there now. Actually, the requirement of the shade tree is only to plant 2.5-inch caliber trees. We will be planting 3 to 4 inch. So I just would like everybody, all the neighbors, to know that we are doing everything possible to recreate a shade tree facade, a real attractive boulevard-like setting with the sycamores. I mean, the sycamores are one of the most prevalent trees in Paris. You know, they're magnificent. So, thank you.
Okay. You know, the sycamore is a very tolerant tree for this kind of setting, and that's why many cities use them. They are very tolerant of urban conditions, and they are very long-lived and can tolerate significant stress. So it is a reasonable choice. It doesn't have to be the choice, but in this setting, it seems to be a reasonable choice.
I was only talking about the garden, not the planting of the trees, and its uniformity. Maybe that's the correct word. That there was a very strong discussion about we want to take these trees down like those gorgeous silver maples. We have spruce, pin oak, red oak, cedar, copper beech, mulberry, Norway maples, silver maples, juniper, saucer magnolias. And we're still a little confused as to how many. I mean, when you say they're all going to go around, and I do agree, the species of tree that's going in is not an inexpensive, ugly tree, but you need to consider its fit with an historic district that has multiple species. And I also agree that, Mr. Deal, that of course there are beautiful, beautiful settings where they should be all in uniform. The question on the table is this the one? And don't forget, if the garage can't be built for some reason, they should be ashamed to let them go.
One other thing I would like to make perfectly clear. We have a long process to acquire and to meet with this board. We've met with HARB 3 times. We will be re-meeting with HARB for a 4th time. This process of taking the trees down will only occur once we own the property. I just would like to let everybody in the neighborhood know that as far as what we're seeking tonight is so that we can have the process follow in an orderly manner and answer all the questions. HARB at their very first meeting brought up, even though they were told that we were not to discuss the shade tree, we talked about the trees on the property, the beech tree, numerous other trees. And after the first 2 HARB meetings, we thought it was the appropriate thing at that time to come before this board with our arborist and to present what we thought was the proper way to proceed with this project. So we will not be taking any trees down. We don't own the property at this time. We will only take the trees down once we receive all the approvals and once we purchase the property. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Allison Engel, 23 Luella Court, and I'm just looking for really a point of clarity as far as the plans are concerned, and maybe it's been reviewed, and I apologize if that's the case. I'm trying to get a clear picture of what the new plantings would look like. Right now on the west side of the property is essentially the mansion. The east side is essentially this open lawn with the houses encircling that's the historic district. I'm trying to get a sense of around the east side of the property on the lawn. We're talking about the sycamores and I guess whatever's in between it, what that would look like at full maturity. And at whatever time that would occur. I'm just trying to get a sense of whether or not that would really essentially become a screen of plantings at maturity, because I've seen pictures of what it would look like when it was first planted, and now I'm seeing something much larger, and I don't have enough experience in trees and shrubbery to know if that will essentially create a wall around the entire east side and what the view shed would be at that point. I guess my point being is that in essence, I feel that the above-ground garage was not approved because it would destroy that open feel, which is what is being preserved in the historic district. The mansion with the open field and the houses around it is the district and that feel of it. And with the above-ground garage, it was denied by the HARB, which was upheld by the Board of Commissioners for that reason, because that would essentially destroy that open feeling on that whole east lawn. And I'm trying to get a sense of whether at maturity all of those plantings would also just create a screen around the open lawn at this time. So if you wouldn't mind speaking to that.
The proposed trees are being planted approximately 25 feet apart. They're going to grow and mature like all other trees, but this will remain open. I mean, they're going to be trees. It's not going to be a fence or a wall. The trees are 25 feet apart. They're going to provide shade, as shown on the rendering. The sight lines will remain beautiful. They'll be treed. When we went to the original HARB meeting and we presented the above-ground garage, without question, the concern there was the sight line and the beautification of that area. I think it would be hard to argue this does not create a more beautiful area than a garage and a dumpster in an existing garage. These trees will be magnificent, and it will be an open garden. So I don't think that sight lines through these trees is going to be an issue. This is a well-thought-out landscape plan, but we're certainly willing to entertain any more comments from this board that they may have, in addition to the ones they made at the last meeting.
Hi, I'm Susan Byrne from Luella Court. We do appreciate the chance to come and air our opinions and discuss our problems with this plan. And so we thank you for your time on that case. One of the other urban legends that's flying around is that we hate developers and nothing is any good for us and all that kind of stuff. So let's just dismiss that right now and say that what we're really trying to have for our neighborhood and the mansion is the best possible outcome that we can find. And that's a back and forth, and that's a give and take. And hopefully people are honest and direct and straightforward, and we don't have to spend more time than is necessary. So let me address some of my concerns. You've seen the view from the top down. This view is north. May I move these, please? So the proposed, it's really not an underground garage at all. It's a submerged garage. So the proposed submerged garage starts at 4 feet up from the side of the building, and the yard tips down to the southeast. So that is going to be a flat roof, as comes from one of the drawings. Hold on. Jim? And you'll notice that this is a berm that runs across. And at the building, it's about 4 feet, roughly. And at the southeast corner, it's probably somewhere between 7 and 9. So while the view shed may be beautiful, I don't know that the view shed can possibly be the same. The neighbors on the southeast corner will be looking into a wall of earth, roughly 1 story high. And then that wall of earth has to grade down to the street. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to look. But that, I think it's the measurement is a vertical foot, and for ADA compliance, it's 7 feet long. So how does that happen? Pardon? 1 and 12. Okay. So if it's 9 feet, say we'll give them the benefit of a doubt. Say it's 7 feet up. 784? So on my side, the north side, it will be 4 feet up. Also, let's correct another myth, which is that it's not all a parking lot and dumpsters and trash. It's more than half green space with trees and canopy and everything else. The rest of it is a gravel parking lot, which doesn't matter to me. So I don't think the line of sight can be the same. And Doug, you had a couple questions the last time about the footprint of the underground garage versus the footprint of the above-ground garage. And the above-ground garage was 2 lanes in this direction with a 5-foot walkway running down the center of them. The submerged garage will be the same 2 parking lot spaces all the way down to 24, with 2 lanes of traffic in the center. So that's adding another 13 feet to the north-south width of the building. So the footprint's larger. Has to be. You had asked also about the setbacks that were on the underground garage. On the above-ground garage, the setbacks were 30 feet. You do the math, they can't be that anymore. And as the road arcs, here, they'll be much closer. So I have the old plan and the new plan if you'd like to do that comparison, but by my calculations, at the corners of the arcs here and here, it's about 10 to 12 feet from the corner of the garage to the curb. So if the trees are going to be, Doug, if the trees are going to be planted back 10 feet from the curb, that means that the 4-inch caliper tree is going to be right on the edge of the corner of those garages. Again, predominantly in the east end of the plan.
My reason for asking that question at the time was to determine how large the root structure would be, how much space there would be down there for that.
Yes.
I mean, when
Well,
it's planted, nobody cares.
I understand
but
that
25
trees
years from now,
find
50 years.
trees roots like water find their place. But if if a large part of the side of the tree is growing on 12 to 18 inches worth of soil, and the other side is getting deeply rooted, is that healthy for the tree? I don't know.
The plans that were submitted to us suggest that there is a 20-foot clearance between the curb line and the garage. Yeah.
Let's take a look.
Sycamores, again, if you're familiar with many municipalities, you can find them growing between a sidewalk and a street in 4 feet of soil. I mean, they're extremely resilient.
Okay. So these will be in the southeast corner, 9 feet up.
Yeah, we don't see that in the plans that were submitted to us.
Yeah.
We don't see the grade changes, so that's news to
Well,
us.
you all walk the space and you know that the earth is tilted, and if it's going to be level according to that original drawing. So there are questions that just don't, something's not making sense in my mind. But if we look at this and look at the scale, that says 10. And it's
I get 1 inch equals 20 feet is the scale. And if I put a ruler on there at the corners, we have 1 inch between the curb line and the corner of the garage, all the way around.
Is this the curb line here, or is this?
This is the curb line.
This is the outside, this is the inside.
Is this the inside? This is where this is.
This is the curb, this is the outside of the street, you can see.
Oh, this is the outside of the street, okay.
Is that correct?
Yep,
Front yard 30-foot setback.
yeah, I got one.
This is the curb line you're talking about?
Okay.
You're talking about this one?
curb line is there.
Okay.
I'm going to this. It's that line, so it's that line right there.
Okay, and so this is setback, or this is the front yard.
That's the right of way.
Well, here's the road right away, it's right here, right?
But that's the.
This is where this exits right here.
No, the curb, but it's not, well,
That's the right-of-way. It's a 33-foot right-of-way from the center line of the road. The curb, the actual street is only 22 feet wide. She's looking at the right-of-way line, not the curb line.
is this,
This line? It has to be this line because that's where your sidewalk's ending.
Where's-
Well, that's where the sidewalk's ending, so it's ending here, so it would indicate to me that pale line. See that sidewalk?
This little line here.
Yep.
Is that
You got a pen with you?
pen?
She said it's this line here.
Okay, that is 10 feet then.
Yes.
It just, are we correct in, this is the correct line? That is the curb line?
That's the curb line.
Okay, so that's the curb line.
This is the right of way. This is the actual streets here. Yes, yes. This is our center, that's our property line that goes out to the middle of the street.
Oh, that's the property line.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. And so the other curb lines are here.
yes,
So this is, between these two is the right of way of the street.
yeah. And we're showing a tree here midway in this area, and we're showing a tree here.
So it's the corner of this is not interfering directly. And then you're showing another one over here, is that something?
No, we're actually 10 feet off the curb. All the sycamores are 10 feet off the curb. And we just chose that as arbitrary. And I will address the grade issue because she.
Okay, well, you need to
We need to
talk
talk
to the
about
mic.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to, we gotta do it so that people can hear.
Would you like to finish? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want to clarify.
So a 4-inch caliber tree is this big around at chest height?
Yep.
That big around at chest height, okay. There have also been some new details that have come to light since the last meeting that you had. One is a note to their attorneys that they need to go through zoning. And we, at the last commissioners' meeting, which was Monday, was discussed that they need to go through planning as well. And as I understand it, when Shade Tree is dealing with a decision separate and apart from planning, you have one level of authority, and when you're dealing with something together with planning, you partner with them, and that's another level of authority. So what we're requesting tonight is that we stop going back and forth to a bunch of different meetings and go to the meetings that are necessary, and we know that those are coming. So rather than, as Cindy said, rather than approve a plan before the plan is a completed plan in Saldo and zoning, if you can defer the decision until the plan has had a chance to go through those, then we won't have as much back and forth. So that is my request. That is our request as a neighborhood.
Could you leave your plans so I can address your comments, please?
Which, all of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kaz is going to do some discussion on the grade, but with respect to the process, it's been a question that's been raised at many meetings. At no point have we been told that we are not permitted to proceed as we are proceeding. Certainly there are people that have opinions about the order in which we should proceed to receive our approvals. It's been made very clear to us that some people don't appreciate the manner in which we're going through, but it was clear from Mr. Rice at the last commissioners meeting that there is no set procedure established in this township, and we are absolutely before this board in a lawful manner, and this board should and is permitted to act as they did at the last month's meeting. So while we respect the procedure that the neighbors are asking us to follow, which is most convenient for them, this is in conformance with your ordinance, and this is convenient for us. And this is our right, and we're proceeding within our rights. Thank you.
I just would like to clear up a couple of inaccuracies that I heard with Ms. Burns' presentation. She talked about this being a berm. There is a slope. Now, if you look at the reason why our plans were so detailed, both to Harb and to this board, we were not instructed to present you with all the plans, a myriad of plans that we have submitted to HARB and to the commissioners. But this is accurate, and this is Susan's, it's our plan, it's a copy of our plan, but it's a small, very small version. Our plans were 24 by 30, just so everybody knows for the record. This is an 8.5 by 11. But Susan made the statement that the roof of the underground garage, I think she called it a submerged garage. I don't know what that means, but our underground garage has a concrete deck, 10-inch deck that's structural, and then it has 12 to 18 inches of lightweight soil on top of it. And it all has to be engineered to provide the proper drainage. Then we collect the stormwater runoff off of this and collect it and let it discharge at a controlled rate, just like any stormwater system. The beauty of this, it's green, it's sustainable. The township has a green roof above the school. You know, this is the latest and the greatest. That's number one. Number two, she made the statement that our garage will be 4 feet higher from her side. She lives on this side of the street. You'll notice the car here. This is accurate. That's why it's so very important for this board to understand. You see the car here? This is North Luella Court, the north side. This is the south side. There is a 5-foot difference. Actually, it goes from 4.5 feet down to 5 feet from this side down to here. Okay? There exists a slope already to the parking lot and to the two-car garage. I would welcome anyone to go and drive around Luella Court. So the statements she is making are just inaccurate. You can see that from the street here, her house sits 18 inches higher than the curb. I know this because our engineers shot and located all of our neighbors' homes because we were required to, for the land development process. So you can see that this street, you can go right across that Victorian garden that we showed on our color plan is straight across, and then the slope is 4 to 1. Township allows 3 to 1. The only area that we might be at 3 to 1 is down as you come around the curve here. You come up off of Lancaster, it raises. This is the high point here, and then it starts going down to a low point right here. There's an inlet shown on the plan. And at that point, that's the low point of Luella Court, and then it rises very quickly all the way around here. In fact, the grade of this street is going to be greater than the grade of our lawn that Susan also said did not meet ADA. There's no requirement that lawns meet ADA requirements. So I just want to be very clear. There was a lot of innuendo and misrepresentation presented just now. Yes.
So, Kaz is obviously very passionate about this project and has become accustomed to defending the entire project at every hearing we attend. We are before the shade tree this evening, and I think the shade tree has its charge, and I just feel like we're drifting away from what the shade tree is charged with in favor of yet another session of why this garage and this project should not move forward. I would just simply ask that we focus on the shade tree issues that we focused on last month and try and determine what this board believes we should do with respect to the removal of these trees and the planting of the new trees. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would ask the members here of your sense of this. My sense is that we made a decision last month that was an appropriate decision. And I understand the concerns of the neighbors. This will, somewhat impact their community, and I can certainly appreciate that. But from the Shade Tree Commission's point of view, I think we acted appropriately within the bounds of the shade tree ordinance, and I just seek any input from. I'm seeking comment from the commission at this point, please.
Howard, just have a couple questions. This preliminary plan didn't state any grade for us to gauge the actual planting of these trees on. I guess my question is, if it is a 3-to-1, appropriate measure to be taken to make sure these trees are going to be planted correctly on that slope? We didn't really see any detail about that in the plan. And we don't really see any detail of the actual trees as they pertain on this plan, engineering-wise, where they're actually going. So a couple points that were made, which were good points about how close they are to the curb. We don't even know where the curb is basically on this plan because it's very gray to me. I can't really read it. And how these trees are going to be actually sited on that grade on this plan so that they can remain healthy on this site for a very long time. That's what our goal is here. There has to be some caretaking when we're planting trees on slopes, whether there are some walls being made to help back that soil up on the backside, or how steep the slope is going to be. And I just didn't see any of that on this plan. That's why I have some questions about the grade itself. There's no grade lines on this plan for me to kind of gauge.
So that's a land development issue. That's something that we'll bring up during the land development process with the township and with the engineers. And all of that goes before them, and that's when we receive our permits to go ahead and do what we're doing. With respect to the Shade Trees Commission, we understand per the ordinance and per our previous visits, it's removal and replacement, appropriate caliber, number of trees, and those plantings will be in accordance with the township ordinances, as they always are. And with respect to slope, it's 4-to-1. Which is above it's better than township standard there. So those things will absolutely come to light during the land development process, which is when the finer details are put forth with respect to planting and location of the trees. It's caliber, number, right now.
Yeah, the Shade Tree Commission does reach beyond just caliber and number. We are an advisory board, and we often make recommendations, regarding tree protection fence, regarding root pruning, fertilization, all sorts of things. So I think Jim's point is well taken, that it would be appropriate for us to see exactly where these trees are being planted in relationship to the building, to be certain that their survival rate is going to be what it should be. Doug, anything?
I thought that my question is what it's going to look like 20 years from now or 25 years from now with the trees that you're going to plant versus what it's looking like right now. Is it going to have the same kind of visual impact, same kind of shade tree kind of stuff? And from what I can see, it looks as though it will. It may not be exactly the same, but I don't know. We were concerned more last time about the preservation of the copper beech tree. We wanted to, since that seems to be the most significant tree on the property, we wanted to make sure that wasn't damaged, and they were able to do that. I'm glad we had an opportunity to look at this again. Do you want to do me a favor and recap exactly what we said from last time?
I think a recap from last time was basically the preservation of the copper beech, and we made the recommendation to pull the pull-off area as far away from the beach as possible. and the applicant has certainly demonstrated their willingness to do that. We questioned what sort of tree were they planning to put back in place of the ones they were removing, and they assured us that they were going to be using the 4-inch sycamores, and the commission was in compliance with that as well. We felt that was a good choice of tree for the situation. That's it in a nutshell. Okay, we've been an hour and 5-10 minutes on this at this point. We have other agenda items. We'll take a couple more, but let's please make it quick. We do have to move on.
Thank you. I'm Jim Schneller. I live at St. David's Park condominium, but I've been traversing Luella Court for 40 years. In fact, my doctor, Dr. Hunt, was right there in the old stucco.
Mine too.
Oh, you look familiar. And so it's a treasure. And I wanted to just touch on a point. There's been a lot of talk about these great majestic trees, but you have, as someone mentioned, at least half a dozen or 8 or even 10 ornamentals in their prime. And I really think it's a no-lose situation to try to hold on to them. I don't think we're looking at a situation where the ground has to be stripped bare. In fact, I think with the way the community is really getting active, there's going to be a lot of pressure to be meticulous. In fact, it's a meticulous project, no matter what happens. It's a inside intensive project that I don't think even foundation work, hopefully, isn't extensive. All this is to say the ornamentals, except for the 2 dogwoods, are along the periphery. Couldn't they be saved? They're 2 very, very nice weeping cherries right on the street and on the north side. The junipers, and these are all great built-in screening already. So if you could possibly take another look at this. It's not the people come in here, I know, and they want to build a large building, and they have open woods, and it's not quite as difficult to give them leave, especially since they have to replant. But this is a great opportunity for a different perspective. And I wanted to mention that planning also does have a lot to bear on this. I mean, if someone could feasibly ask for a sidewalk, we don't know what planning and what community development is going to ask for. So I too wanted to mention that if you could put a condition that anything not be disturbed until a situation applicable. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, one more. That's it.
The reason in the video, the last time, you said something about it was completely appropriate, and that's fair. But you asked Cass, what do you want us to do? Which is legitimate. And he said, I'm asking you to rule on these trees for removal for the purpose of the underground garage, and to do it, please, before the HARB meeting. Well, the HARB meeting approved it, certificate of appropriateness, but then Monday night, as Susan said, there were conditions placed and determination that it may not happen. That's one. So the appropriateness of the decision may not be as relevant as was requested. That was the reason he asked you to do this. Number 2, there's a 97-foot spruce tree that's 100 years old. And I guess I'm going to ask you this question. The second this property is closed, Mr. Holloway has the right, based on your permit, regardless of whether it is necessary, to go in and clear that tree. How are you going to feel? It's healthy. There was a study done, 50% of the trees in Radnor are sick and haven't been maintained. And I know you guys work so hard to make that happen. And that 97-foot spruce tree, as important, as gorgeous, as important to the historic district as that Copper Beech, is going down. And I ask you why you would allow that before we even know if it's necessary. Thank you.
I would like to address Mr. Schneller and to let him know I agree. The ornamentals on the property are beautiful. as we testified at the last meeting, we are not taking any trees down that are on the north, west, or south of the house. The two magnificent magnolias are remaining. The three beautiful cedar trees, the yews that are on the corners of the property. We came before this board with a simple request of 11 trees that are in the proximity of the garage, and we're replacing them with the number of trees that we have demonstrated. So we're saving the cherries, even when we were told that the cherries could come down. We have gone to great lengths to preserve the trees. We want the building to look just like it does, but we want to enhance the plantings around the building and around the property. So I will, that's all I wanted to address. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think having heard everybody's thoughts, the one thought that I think is most prevalent is that Jim brought up regarding the planning of the sycamores and where they're actually going to go on location, and how the slope, how they're going to be planted into the slope. Again, all the decisions that we made in the last meeting were certainly sound and certainly within the ordinance. And we struggle with this all the time. Development is development, and we watch trees come down. And again, we're an advisory committee. We're not here to oppose development. There is there's a sacrifice one must make at times in order to keep your community vibrant and vital. And so as long as we're complying within the ordinance, we feel that we've made the right decision. Okay. Alrighty, so we will request that you produce a plan that shows us where those trees will actually be planted and how the slope is being dealt with. Alrighty, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 225 Lansdowne Avenue.
So you've affirmed the previous decision with the condition that we produce a plan?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon?
Will we get, as a community, to speak to that plan?
Yeah, that will be presented at the next Shade Tree Commission meeting.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, if you could identify yourself, please.
Hello, my name is Chris Yawn. I work for Momini and Associates. We are the civil engineers for this project. It's 225 Lansdowne Avenue. 225 Lansdowne was subdivided, I believe it was about 5 years ago, from property just to the north of it. This is a vacant lot, although it has a pool there that served the other house.
Excuse, I'm sorry, I didn't. It's Chris. What's your last name?
Yawn, Y-O-H-N.
Okay. That's why I didn't catch it. Thank you. No, that's all right.
And so, as part of the subdivision back in 2006, it was a different engineer. However, they did come to you with plans, and they were approved to remove, I believe, it doesn't say how many trees they were approved to remove, but I believe it was around 10 or so. Some of those have been removed. 2 that are still remaining, we are now asking to remove those now. They are a 6-inch maple tree that's right here, and a 16-inch tree right here.
Did you say 16?
16-inch, yes. So we will plant 2 new trees. For those 2 that will be removed, we show the replacement trees along this property line.
16. You know what species your 16-inch tree is?
I do not. It's deciduous.
Why is it you want to take them down?
Well, just it's necessary to take them down for the new development, construction of the new house and driveway.
Is this, what you're seeing down there actually is not existing at this point?
Correct.
This house
is the
footprint
proposed
isn't
house.
there?
Right, that's the proposed house.
Oh,
What's there right now is just this pool and patio that surrounds it right here.
Oh, okay.
And there's a walkway over here to an existing house there that the lot
Used to be part of.
like this. They subdivided it in half in 2006. They haven't built a new house until now. They're now proposing to build the new house. And so these are the grading permit plans to build that house. And there were some trees out front that were previously removed as part of that previous approval, and the two back here weren't removed yet, but we're asking to
remove them now.
reaffirm their removal when we build the house.
Okay, and it was 2006.
I believe so.
They approved?
Yeah, the 2006 summary was a conditional approval. Is this a different footprint than was?
Yes, it is.
Is it a smaller footprint?
It is slightly larger. I don't know the square footage, but on these old plans, it says that the percentage of lot area was 15.6%, and this building area is 17.8, so it's a hair larger.
Do you have the plans that they conditionally approved? I mean, or was it dwelling?
I don't know if these were the ones that you approved, but these are the recorded copy from the township. So these are the last set of plans on file at the township.
Is there like this doesn't have an outline of the house on it. Does another sheet that does? And this is what are the trees? What we're talking about now?
That's the same 16.
And the other is?
It actually wasn't shown. It wasn't shown. We went out and said, okay, these are already down. This one still here needs to come down, and we found that one, so I added it to the plan.
So we didn't actually approve the 16 last time.
Not that one.
And you don't know what kind of tree it is. Are all the other trees about the same? I mean, they're all the same kind of tree? Or they're all different? You know,
Most of the ones on the side are, most of the ones up here kind of jump right there.
okay.
I could
I thought we,
make that a condition that
we have already, yes.
Yeah, here's
yeah, what we're proposing now is just a berm to push the water where we want it to go instead of curb.
at the part now, so we're trying to refresh our minds from what we did 4 years ago. It's 5 years ago. I know one of the concerns we had back then was the large trees on the neighboring property.
Yes.
And at that time, we were suggesting to keep everything surface mounted for the stormwater runoff, and that the rolled curb would be a safer choice rather than putting in a standard concrete curb. At this point, you're saying, how are you going to deal with that stormwater?
With grading. And so the driveway would still pitch away from the house, and this side of the driveway would be a low point, and then the grade would come up slightly a few inches and then come back down to act as a berm or, graded curb, you could call it, to push the water down along this side. This sycamore, you could see by the contour lines, it actually grades, I don't want to call it steep, but it's not flat coming down past it, and so really the majority of this here is fill. It's not cut next to the tree. I think a point back here is really is the last point of cut, so everything else would be put on or above grade, thus hopefully not disturbing the roots as much.
It's 1 to 10, yeah.
Is that pavement or is that or asphalt or something, or is that,
Asphalt.
is it water permeable? I mean,
No.
water goes through it? It'll be hard, it'll be sealant asphalt.
Impervious,
That's
yes.
what I meant, impervious.
Mhm.
And it'll be inside the drip line of the tree, right?
Yes, it is.
Well, the driveway's 8 foot away from this property line. That's 3 foot.
Uh,
Is the house shifted here, or what are we looking at?
the house bigger? You got the driveway on this plan, or 8 foot long property line. That's what we told them to do.
Right. To kick it this way.
Kick it this way. See?
But the
Kick it
house,
up
the
front line.
footprint of the house is bigger.
No, but the building envelope is the same. The footprint of the house is not moved that way. Is that correct? Footprint of the house hasn't been moved this way. But the driveway has been moved. That was the issue.
I think, for starters, we need to know what that 16-inch tree is, the species. I mean, that's a requirement of the ordinance, is to identify that.
Does the water coming down, he's using the edge of the driveway basically as a gully to let the water run down past that tree. Is that going to leave a lot, it's going to be impervious down past it. Is that going to be a problem for that? Or is the roots going to be damaged, or is there going to be enough water in it?
Once you get to past the driveway, we have a drain to collect the water. And actually, there's another one along the way. So there's a drain here that will collect some, and then when it comes down past, there's a drain that will collect the rest.
Where do they run?
Well, we have 2 stormwater management systems. There's one underground stone bed in the front,
All right.
and there's an underground pipe system in the back.
Okay.
So this one in the front goes to this system. Overflow will come back to this drain and then into this pipe system, so that we get our recharge in the front and all of our rate control in the back.
All that water in there is not going to affect that tree, though, right? The neighbor's tree?
So they never built this. Yeah. It's all in the front. Yep. And now they got the buffer in back. They flip-flop this around, see if they have this in the back here. How they go from 2 to 1? Is that twice the capacity of these?
One in the front is larger. One in the back, they had, I want to say it was maybe 18-inch or 2-foot pipe, and ours is maybe 3-foot pipe, so the volume's pretty close to being the same, but put in different places.
Okay, again, the biggest concern that I see here is the large trees on your neighbor's property. When this first came before us, the turnaround area that was associated with the garage was to be gravel, due to the close proximity of that paving area to that very large sycamore. I would recommend that we continue with that.
I'm sorry, but what would be the advantage of it being gravel instead of paved?
The gravel is at least pervious, and you're not going to do as much damage to the root system of the sycamore.
Well, I guess the paving section would be stone underneath, and only the top 2 inches would be paved. So as far as the stone on the bottom, that would be the same. I guess I understand the
With the
pervious
typical
portion.
paving, you have 4 to 6 inches of crushed stone, and then you've got a binder, and then you have your smooth pavement on top. The advantage of just a straight gravel path or driveway would be that the water would be able to percolate through and would not be impeded by the blacktop.
That's why I asked if it's permeable asphalt. Would permeable asphalt be an appropriate compromise, or no?
To my knowledge, they've been doing some work with permeable asphalt that only stays permeable for a certain amount of time until it gets clogged. The issue with the driveway location, I'd like to see it go back to how it was in the former plan, the distance from the drive to the property line. And this parking cutout that you have all the way to the property line at the exact location of the sycamore tree is going to be a problem.
Okay.
Do you see how it exits? See, you take it right to the property line there? And on this plan, we're like 8 feet away.
Okay.
That's why we restricted that on this plan to begin with, because of that sycamore tree.
Okay.
Is there a chance this pipe that you have leading to your bubbler here can be just trenched as close to the foundation as possible? Are you going to get
You're
pitched that
talking
way?
about this pipe here?
Yep.
Yeah, rather than making.
Yes, I could reroute that.
What's the depth do you think is going to be? I mean, you got to go deep down here? The closer you can get it to that foundation, the better off the sycamore tree is going to be.
I can move it over. That's fine.
So if you just shot a straight line from where your exit to that box would be.
That's fine. I can do that. It can run straight down this inside right into the system. That's fine. It is, the invert I have here is 394.83, which is actually above the grade here. So, for at least a portion of it, it wouldn't be cutting into the roots. Maybe once you get back in this section, it would be cutting into the existing grade, and it may affect the roots. But at least for this part, it would be above grade. But regardless, it's fine to move it over.
Okay, I would recommend that you come back next month with a redesigned plan, identifying the 16-inch tree, showing the relocated stormwater line, and that you would have gravel in your turnaround, and if there's any way you can slide that whole thing over the other way to the, what are we talking, is that south, to provide more relief to your neighbor's trees?
The driveway you're talking about? I mean,
you're within your setback line, so you can't do a whole lot to the house.
Right. And actually, I said neighbor, but the people who live here I believe, will be moving into this house, and they've lived there for a long time. They are sensitive to these trees. And
Okay.
Could moving the driveway, certainly the pipe seems to be an easy change.
Right.
Could moving the driveway also be a condition, so we wouldn't have to come back?
Or do you want to come back?
Yeah, I think I would prefer that you come back next month showing the changes.
Okay.
Especially the 16-inch tree type.
Yeah. Okey doke.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 452 Boxwood Road.
My name is Chip Vaughn. I'm here representing the landowner. His property is on Boxwood. There have been a number of houses, newer houses built on Boxwood. Just as a point of reference, this property actually came before you back in 2006 for a shade tree approval, where there are 47 trees being removed and 53 trees putting back in. And that plan was approved back then, so this was also part of a previous subdivision. So I don't know that we're doing a whole lot different in terms of number of trees and so forth.
Is this basically a resubmittal of the same plan? I mean, or
It's
is this?
not, it's not the same, I have a copy of, if you'd like, this was the plan that was,
Submitted then.
presented back then.
But this was never executed?
I'm sorry?
It was never executed?
No.
Okay.
The trees are still there?
It's called a housing recession.
But you didn't cut down any of the trees, right? You didn't make any change
no.
to the trees?
I don't
Natural
believe,
growth.
I honestly don't know for sure, but I don't believe any of the trees were, it doesn't appear that they were.
All right. And you're now requesting to be able to just do what they approved last time?
I'm
You're
sorry.
now we're now asking us to ratify what we did whenever this was before.
Right.
Has the footprint of the house changed?
I'm sorry?
Has the footprint of the house changed, or the driveway, or?
Yes, the house footprint is different. As far as I mean, I don't have all I have is the engineered plan. I don't have an actual footprint of the house. I mean, I don't have a house plan. But just looking at this house is different, and the driveway is different. The driveway's a little less of an impervious entrance. And the stormwater feature has been relocated a little bit.
Chip, where's the utilities marked on this? Your utilities coming into this house? Oh, okay, here we go. Water. Okay. I got you. I got it.
Is this the one? Is this your last one? Okay, that's a different one.
What's SU? Sumac. There's property lines here. Keep going. Is there any neighbors existing trees? I guess not. Those are 20 spruces. Yeah. It's coming pretty heavy grade here.
They're not going to affect any of these, right?
These are all new.
And what about these on the side of the line?
They're all new too.
Are they planting?
The neighbor.
No, well,
Oh, I don't know.
sorry.
I mean, what? have to ask them about these, if they're existing or if they're planned.
There's some trees on the left-hand side on the other side of the property line. Are you planting them, or are they already there?
Chris is also the engineer on this property, so he can answer some of
Congratulations.
his questions better than I can.
See what I'm talking about?
Yes, they were the replacement trees that we showed at the time for that permit. I don't know if they were all planted there. That's where they were proposed at the time. I don't know if that's where they ended up. So,
But you,
we did.
you were going to plant them rather than the next-door neighbor. Is that correct?
The next door neighbor was supposed to have planted those, and so I'm
Thank you.
assuming they're there.
Okay.
I think what Chris is saying is those were a requirement. That house was just built maybe a year ago, probably less than a year ago, so I'm assuming they had a shade tree requirement. And the trees that are on the left-hand side of that property line were a requirement of replacement trees. I honestly can't remember if they're there or not.
Now, I saw the water and sewer coming in the front. There's not a gas line coming up from the front, is there?
You're going to have to, I have
I'm
to
sorry,
apologize.
there's not-
My wife tells me I should wear my hearing aid, but I didn't tonight, so.
I don't see a gas line coming up. A gas utility? Is it not using gas, or is it? I'm just not seeing it.
We have the gas coming up on this side.
Oh, well, no wonder. You snuck it in there. Is it underground electrical, right?
Underground electric will come from the rear of the property. There's some power poles along and overhead utility lines along the rear property line, so it'll come from the back.
But that's not going to interfere with any of the trees.
Not any of the existing trees. There's
Okay,
some here.
thank you.
This is going here.
The bold dotted line that's coming over to the stormwater retention system down on your southeast corner, is that coming from the neighbor's property?
It's coming from the neighbor's property. The subdivision, this is a 3-lot subdivision. Believe it was done in 2004. Was the existing lot is over here, house was over here, and they subdivided off this lot and this lot. And they were approved to have the overflow for the stormwater management system for this one, 454 Boxwood, to come through here, through 452 Boxwood to the existing inlet. And there's a 20-foot wide stormwater easement that was created for that pipe.
Okay.
Split the difference here to save the sycamore tree, or it's not worth it? This thing can't be put over here, can it? It's not. There you go. It grades right. I don't know if it'll make any difference, but it'll get this line out of the way from this tree. If they could. Or from here.
Yeah, Jim's bringing up the point as to whether or not that shared stormwater system, if that line could be moved to the north.
This line here,
Yep.
I believe that one's already in.
It's already there.
I mean, it should have been installed as part of this house construction and the stormwater management system that's over there. That should have been installed as their overflow.
What's it go to? Is there a clean out right there at the street? What's that junction box?
There's an existing inlet there. It's a open mouth inlet set back from the curb.
For above ground?
Yeah, for the street drainage. This inlet is in the curb, and so it takes the drainage from the street. This overflow goes into that inlet, and then it's piped underground under the street to this inlet, and then down back towards the stream.
Why would your stormwater be going into the storm sewer and then back into your?
This system.
Here, and this is the overflow that goes out to the street.
Oh, this is going out the street too. I'm sorry. I got it. This is the overflow going into that.
Yeah.
I got it.
This is the overflow pipe for this stormwater management system.
Right.
This goes down to the inlet.
Right.
This is the overflow from the neighbors. They both go to the inlet. They wire together and then go down the street. I believe there's a stream behind these people's property on the other side of the street.
Okay, now there's what looks to be a 20-inch beach. And it looks like you've got some grading going on right around it.
Yes.
And that tree is to remain?
Yes, it is.
You got another plan showing a tree protection?
Yes, it's on sheet 2.
Can you explain to me the amount of grading that's going to be taking place underneath that beach?
From the street, the lot slopes up, and so the driveway will be cut into the grade here at the street. And so, in line with the beach, right here, there's probably about 1 foot of cut at the driveway.
Keep on pointing up for us, see where you're cutting.
So,
Keep going up.
basically, essentially, all of this is cut.
And then taper down toward that beach. Is that your taper lines coming down from the drive toward the beach?
These lines are connecting back into grade, yes.
That beach is not going to tolerate that kind of a cut.
What kind of shape is that 26-inch sycamore tree in by the street that you're going to, it's right in the middle of the driveway there, do you know?
I do not.
What's the chance of moving the driveway over a little bit to save that sycamore but get rid of the beech tree?
He's trying to.
Moving it this direction
Yeah,
to get rid of the beech and save the sycamore.
yeah. Because at this point, we're probably going to lose both of them.
Which sycamore? This one?
Yes. Save that. This beech, the driveway.
I've had a lot of discussion with the, you'd have to move the driveway at least to here someplace to get on the other side of the inlet. And it's not the, I've had discussions with the people who own the lot and are wanting to build a house here, and they really don't want to put the driveway to that side of the lot.
Could you move it further to the other side?
Well, we're tight here. We're pretty tight here between these two sycamores. We're gonna screw both of these up.
Yep.
Well, could you just run the driveway out like that?
We have one sycamore here.
Right.
But you could move it all the way out here if you wanted to.
I guess you could do something. If it's only
If you want to preserve these two and sacrifice that? Or isn't it, or am I?
No, I think the best thing is just the beach comes down and they make compensatory.
With the sycamore and the beech. There's no chance the client's going to go for straightening that radius. I mean, curving that driveway a little harder, or straightening this radius out. I mean,
I'm not sure what you see.
You want to straighten the radius out to come over this way more?
no. Like we talked before, where that coming
Come
through,
down
where that
through
be,
the
yeah.
beach, through here.
Yeah, but you'd have to. I mean, I can't make that decision because this is after many, many hours of discussion with the people who own the lot. This is, believe me, this is umpteen million hours of discussion. So I'm not at liberty to say I can just move that driveway over without. I can tell you that it's not something they want to do. But.
Part 20, yeah. 20 inch.
I mean, if you, I think what Chris is pointing out is if you look across the front there, there's 1, 2, 3 sycamores that are.
Sycamore here, sycamore there, that this would be kind of right in the middle, that maybe if you thought that beach wasn't going to go, maybe a sycamore could be planted there and continue the streetscape.
Well, if you take out the 20-inch beech, you're going to need to plant more than one tree, but no, I don't see that beech surviving the way you currently have it laid out. I mean, beeches are extremely sensitive to having their root systems disturbed.
I mean, I don't think there'd be any, I don't think that they would have a problem if to keep this is to, if you take down, we remove the beech and plant a, sort of what Cass was talking about, a good-sized sycamore there. It's obviously not going to be the same size as the ones that are there, but.
Okay, what sorts of trees are you going to be putting back in general? You have any idea yet?
Specified in, we show on the first sheet, all the approved trees.
Right.
But we haven't specified any.
Okay, we typically recommend that you favor your large canopy trees wherever you can, especially when you're taking down as many trees as you are taking down here. We prefer, the larger trees like white oaks, red maples, etc., as opposed to a whole slew of little ornamentals. So we make that recommendation.
Just going to include the beech in the tally.
Yep.
Do you want to spec out a little bit larger sycamore to go back in along the streetscape?
Yep. I'd say at least a 4-inch sycamore go back in. The 20-inch beech has to come into your replacement formula. Okay. Okay, sir. Conditional approval. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, 400 King of Prussia Road, St. Martin's Church. Thank you for your patience.
He is not an engineer. He might be. Right. You're right, Doug. He might be. Good evening. My name is John Riley. I'm the Rector's Warden at St. Martin's Church in Radnor. We have submitted a two-lot subdivision plan for our campus at 400 King of Prussia Road, which is the corner of King of Prussia and Glen Mary, and one side is also on Belrose Lane. Excuse me. I, of course, forgot my plans this evening. I apologize for that, so hopefully I can kind of walk you through what we are proposing.
Do you want to borrow these initially?
Sure. Thanks. Other way? Yes. Thanks. The two-lot subdivision that we're proposing is to create a new, a new one acre lot that will exit onto Belrose Lane. Currently on that lot is the structure that we refer to as the carriage house, which serves as the parish rectory. So that's an existing structure there. The 1 acre lot is will have that sitting on it, and some of the existing paved area will remain, and obviously we're showing a drive for purposes of the subdivision. Then the remainder of the lot is approximately 7 acres, and that will continue as it's currently used for church purposes and other purposes.
And that's the mansion, it's the church building as well as the parking lot?
That's correct. This structure right here we refer to as Bolingbroke. That is the parish house where we have parish functions, and there's also other uses in that structure, a daycare, and also periodically it's rented out for social events by parishioners and other folks that have social gatherings there. Also community meetings, and we use it for Sunday school. It's a structure that gets a lot of use from the parish. The church itself is shown down here, and it's in the right of way, but it's not moving. So, and parking here and whatnot. The subdivision proposal itself doesn't call for the removal of any trees. I think somewhere one of these plans we show the proposed drive. Here we go. Hold on. We show the proposed driveway that exits out onto Belrose Lane and makes its way through some existing trees, but the plan that we're showing does not call for the removal of any trees. I do believe that our engineer indicated that for purposes of the construction of that drive, that there would be some grading within the drip line of a few trees. And I believe the appropriate protections are shown on the plan as well, maybe not on that one. Maybe it's on this one, with the driveway coming through from Belrose down to the side of the carriage house, and I guess we have a little stormwater management shown there as well. But at this point, the plan does not contemplate the removal of any trees.
Can you identify some of the, I see the black dots. That's all I can see. Can you identify the trees that are most affected by that driveway?
I would
Side.
suspect that it would be perhaps this mulberry here. And that's outside. There really aren't that many, but I'm sorry, excuse me. I believe that's primarily the one that is most affected by the,
Okay.
at least a proposed path of the driveway. Again, I mean, this drive is obviously being shown for the feasibility of the subdivision proposal.
Right. Okay.
Are we ruling on the driveway part or just on the subdivision?
We're just on the subdivision at this point. The driveway.
Yeah, we're not, yeah, we, with the exception of the drive itself, I mean, we aren't showing any other development in the subdivision at all.
Right.
The future of the newly subdivided parcel remains to be determined, but it could well be that that parcel is acquired by someone else who will obviously go through
Right.
everything that the typical development would go through. Let me return your plan.
Okay. Very good, sir. Thank you.
Where'd my engineer go?
Pardon? Yeah, some lady took him away.
Anything else?
You're good. You're good to
Good to
go
go.
from
Great.
the subdivision point.
Thank you
of
very
view.
much.
Yep. Okay. We have any other business before the commission?
Yes, hi, I'm Dr. John Williams, resident of 676 Glenmurray Road and owner of 901 Glenbrook Avenue. This is John Williams III. Have a seat there. Okay. I've been in communication with Mr. Ward regarding a situation at the 901 Glenbrook property. There is a rather large white ash tree in the back of the 901 Glenbrook property that I haven't measured exactly, but I think the diameter of the trunk is somewhere around 5 feet. It's a pretty impressive tree. It's actually like a twin tree that's kind of fused at the base, and it's about twice the size of the 3-story building on that lot. And about a week ago, about 10 days ago, I happened to come into the property and see that the neighbor directly behind the property on the other side at 900 County Line was cutting off large limbs that were overhanging onto the property. Onto the property. The owner of that is Edward and Nora Liu. And I was obviously very concerned about this, and I began to inquire further. And in the process of the inquiring further, I realized that the roots of this tree had been cut. And I enlisted someone to come check this out, and he has not done a full inspection, but he's willing to go on record saying that it's been done within the last 4 years, which is the time during which the property has been owned by the neighbor. And so the neighbor, unfortunately, is not being very neighborly and is refusing any access to her property to inspect the root system of the tree. Now, basically, if you kind of understand this, the roots, I wish I had photographs here to show you, but essentially the tree is right at the boundary. So the roots, one side of the root system went onto this, this other property. But essentially what's been done is that the roots have been sheared off. I mean, and I'm literally talking about this much root. I mean, it's literally like a straight cut. It's almost like you took some sort of like a grinder and went kind of right through them. I've never seen anything like it, actually. My concern about this tree is, and we'll put aside whether this was a lawful mutilation or whatever you want to call it of the roots. My concern about this tree is, and this is the sense, again, he has not done a full inspection, but this is in fact the sense of the arborist who I've been working with, is that it's potentially not safe. And I'm now in a situation where this neighbor is refusing access to the property, and the way that the neighbor has cut off these limbs, and I'm talking limbs that are, this thick in diameter, as well as cut the roots. It doesn't take a physics major to realize which way that tree is going to fall if it decides that it wants to uproot. So that's why I'm here tonight. I wanted to talk with the board about, what are the options here. I mean, clearly, if this tree were to uproot, we would be talking about major property damage and quite possibly fatalities. I mean, the thing is absolutely massive. So that's basically, why I'm here.
So you're afraid it's going to fall over and hit your house or something like that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, where is it exactly?
It's at the back of the lot.
What's the address again?
901 Glenbrook Avenue in the 5th Ward.
Where's that? Where's Glenbrook Avenue?
It's this bow-like street that comes off of, where Pasilio's Pizza is, right at Bryn Mawr Hospital.
Okay.
It's right. It was actually the original way that the railroad went, and so it's an older street with a lot of older houses. But it comes out on one end at the 7-Eleven, right at Yang Ming, and on the other end, It's one way it's one way in front of 901, but it's actually two-way west of Beatrice Drive.
All right, I know where you're talking about. I had no idea where Glenbrook. Forgive me.
Okay, and you said that you think this happened about 4 years ago?
I guess I would call him a forensic arborist. he says yes, this has happened within the past 4 years. The neighboring property has been owned by the current landowners since by the current neighbors since 1998.
Okay. Yeah, the cutting of the limbs is within their right. I mean, that, there's no...
Unless they do any undue harm to
right,
the tree.
unless they do undue harm.
If they
But
make it
if they
unbalanced
simply
or
cut
anything.
the limbs off that are overhanging on their property, they have the right to do that. To intentionally chew into the root system is what I would classify as undue harm. I mean, that seems a little bit over the edge.
Well, let me.
Did they have their own tree there that they ground out, and in the process interfered with the root system of your tree? Was there?
No, and let me explain. So, and if you, and I would invite each of you or all of you to come over and inspect this from my side. I'm giving you permission to do so. It's pretty clear that if you look at what happened, it's pretty clear that the reason why this was done was for a parking lot. A parking lot which, incidentally, my review of the permits for 900 County Line has no permit for the creation of the parking lot.
Okay.
So, again, it's like the roots sort of stop right there. They're cut off literally that much. I mean, it's the strangest looking thing that you could imagine. And then there's the parking lot right next to it. And there is an asphalt right up to the roots. There's actually like some crushed stone But again, the individual who I've been working with indicated that quite likely, to have the stone there, you had to disturb even more roots underneath it, because obviously the stone isn't just sitting on top of roots. There's a bed of stone. So the damage to the roots is not just the part which is above the grade, but is actually also underneath. So it's pretty clear if you look at it that it was done for the purposes of increasing the parking surface.
Okay. So there was a reason behind it. It wasn't just a malicious act. Okay.
This was most definitely not random. However this was done required some rather large grinding machinery.
Okay. No, I don't know of any jurisdiction that we have over a situation like this. I appreciate you bringing it forward to us, because if indeed this damage occurred to the tree 4 years ago, what's the health of the tree at this point?
Well, so there, it's blooming or whatever. It has leaves on it. There are some branches to it that are not, that don't have leaves on them. And initially I never would have even known anything about this. I never would have thought to look on the other side, except for that when I'd come in that day, despite having talked to the neighbor and mentioned that I was going to prune it, the limbs were being lopped off. That's when I began to really pay more attention to it.
Right.
I don't think it looks super healthy. Here is my question before the board. I've read the code, and as if I understand it correctly, if someone had chopped down a heritage tree without a permit from you, that would be something that you have jurisdiction over. But if someone has vandalized a heritage tree which is not in the public right-of-way, you actually don't have jurisdiction over that.
Right.
So the first thing I wanted to suggest, just as a taxpayer and resident of Radnor, I think that the commissioners need to think very strongly about modifying the code, because what I'm alleging that this neighbor has done is in fact destroy the tree, and or render the tree to the point where we have no opportunity but to destroy it, because I really don't want to be finishing a long day at work and be killed or have my spinal cord severed by a falling limb. So so that's the first issue, and I don't know how that would occur, and I can certainly talk to both my commissioner where I live and the commissioner where that property is. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and perhaps the more urgent issue, is, again, as best as he could, given that the other neighbor has been really quite, not helpful, and could in fact be putting people at risk. My arborist has looked at it and says he has real concerns about the tree, and I don't need that tree to fall on the side of the building. I think what I would ask for, secondly, and this you do have the jurisdiction over, is the permit to remove it.
Mm-hmm.
And because what's going to happen, the first thing, we're going to go about, probably what will have to be done is it will have to be photographed, and I have the ability to photograph it from another neighbor, but then have it basically be kind of sheared off, and it's going to look pretty terrible. But then, depending on how we decide to proceed in terms of the justice system, that's a whole other issue. But just so that it's not going to fall down. But I do need from this committee the permission to do that, because ironically, it could be vandalized and mutilated by a neighbor, but then if I were to actually cut it down without, I would be fined, as you know. So that's really, and I'm a little bit concerned. I know that you guys aren't meeting again for a month, or I don't even know if you meet again this summer. And so that's the thing that really concerns me, because I want to go on record. You know, I'm just concerned about that.
Yeah, I think,
What you need to do is you need to get a hazard tree evaluation done to the tree. Somebody's got to write a letter for you stating exactly what the situation is and what the state of the tree is, and then we can issue a hazard tree permit from that.
So would that be that would be an arborist who?
Be an arborist who goes over there.
But I can't do. I need to actually have some sort of a letter on file from an arborist.
Yeah, you need to have a hazard tree evaluation from a certified arborist stating that the tree is indeed a hazard. Then you should bring it to us, and we sign off on it.
Okay. Now, how does that work, given that you know your next meeting isn't for a while? I mean, is there some sort of intermeeting activity that goes on?
yeah, the hazardous trees, it'll be the next item on our agenda, but if indeed it's a hazardous tree, we can sign off on it on site practically.
Okay.
We don't want to, if indeed the tree is a threat to anyone, we don't want to drag it out to the next meeting.
Right.
But if you get a letter from a certified arborist saying that yes, the tree is in danger and it's it's a hazard, we can sign off on that and you can move forward.
Okay. All right. Well, then I will do that. And who should that be sent to Mr. Ward or Mr. Holden? Okay.
I think if you have the arborist sign off on the hazardous tree report,
right,
you can simply send it to engineering.
Okay.
And
they can act on that fairly quickly.
Yep.
Now the question I have is, again with the rather unneighborly neighbor that I have, who is potentially putting people's lives at risk, who's not allowing us to go on the property. Is it possible just to be able to sort of look and sort of look at what's been done to the roots and what's been done to the top? They don't have to be actually doing soil samples or anything like that. It's not like they have to actually be on the other side or anything.
Yeah, a good certified arborist should be able to detect how much damage has been done.
Yeah, I mean he already said he has major concerns about the tree. So
okay.
So, and again, I just would like to. So I will do that and contact engineering, and then they can act fairly quickly. That's very reassuring. Thank you for that. Again, I just want to emphasize again that this is really a dreadful thing that has happened to this tree. I mean, this is a majestic tree, and I certainly have the means and the commitment to the environment to replace it with something nice. But it's literally going to probably take till after he is a grandfather to replace it, and it's a real shame.
Yeah.
So I would ask in your conversations with the commissioners, if this ordinance can be modified, it should not just be trees, heritage trees in the right of way that are mutilated that you have jurisdiction over.
Right.
So
several years ago, the ordinance was revised, as you heard tonight, when plans are submitted, that we need to know what trees are within 10 feet of the property line, because we realized at that point that neighbors don't always talk to each other.
Right.
And that we wanted to know what trees might be affected by construction.
Yeah.
Apparently this quote-unquote construction took place without any approvals, and so we never knew about it. But.
Well, it's interesting because I think it probably just I don't know what happened, but it happened, and at least I'm glad that maybe it won't happen again.
Yep.
So
it'd be wise for you to get a very thorough report on the tree, because if you don't have it and it moves further into litigation, you're going to wish you did.
Yes. No, I'm. The rules of civil procedure apparently allow complete discovery. So
you'd be wise to go.
Yeah. So that's. I think the individual who I'm working with seems quite savvy on that. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
Just, what's your name again, sir?
John Williams.
John Williams, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any other issues to come before the board?
I was here at the last meeting, and there was a Jim Schneller, St. David's Park. There was a hazardous tree report about 209 Midland Avenue.
Right.
And I looked into the tree, and you probably know I filed an appeal from your grant, your approval of the hazardous tree after going to take a look at it on Memorial Day weekend. And it was clear to me that, A, there's no heaving of the ground. What you have is a large willow, a 100-foot willow. And there's no sign of sagging. Now, it's a lopsided tree, but what I wanted to come and ask you for is to possibly retract your approval, because the tree is absolutely not hazardous. And I find it incomprehensible that a heritage tree would be sacrificed just, well, apparently the reason is, or an underlying reason is, that the owner wants to put a garage there. So being a daily, almost a daily passerby, and noting that the natural habitat is swampy and that this is one of the last willows around. You know, there's a great willow on the corner of, there we go. The next block down, the block after St. Catherine's, towards St. David's, there's a wonderful willow on the corner that I always enjoy. This, however, is a heritage tree, and I want to object and somehow ask you to retract simply on the basis that if it's a heritage tree, the landowner should have come to you and asked for removal of a heritage tree. And I don't know how it got in front of you, but the landowner hasn't proceeded as they should. And I did appeal it. I wrote a written appeal to the board, and Mr. Zinkowski wrote me back, and he said that he, on behalf of the board, was denying the appeal. So, you know, procedure aside, I wanted to point out to you why I did it is because, A, there's no heaving of the ground, and B, it's a wonderfully healthy tree that, if pruned nicely, would gain its balance in case there was any kind of a danger. It seems it's not in a literal swamp, which is fortunate because it's as sturdy as a beam. And B, it's quite obvious if you look at the way it's interlaced between the power lines that if it had moved in the past year or 4 years, PICO would have had to be out there, or we'd have rubbing of wires if there was any movement of the tree. And there hasn't been any movement of the tree, to my knowledge, because there have been no limbs removed, and it's just like an 8-inch trunk, literally with 4 inches on either side of 2 wires. So I'm deeply concerned. I know that this is the original street in Wayne, and the tree, I would plead for its life. And I'm wondering if there's any way, have you ever retracted an approval? And like I said, I wouldn't want to ask you to go around the manager, but I don't think you would be if you could go take a look at it.
Yeah, I have taken a look at it, and it is on a 45-degree angle. It is a very old willow. It is not in that great of health, and it appears to me that there is an ash tree that's literally helping hold it up. You know, willow trees are known as they get older that they can easily fall over, especially when they're sitting in a wet root zone, such as that one is. For us to walk away from that and say it's not a hazardous tree, and then it would fall over and indeed cause damage, I don't think any of us on this board would be willing to do that.
But it is a heritage tree. I mean, at this point,
yeah. Well,
simple
there's lots of
pruning would
heritage.
wait.
I mean, we just heard of another heritage tree earlier that it's being, the owner's concern is it's hazardous. There's lots of heritage trees that do become hazardous.
Yes, but my point is that I looked at it today to see if it was leaning on anything, that ash, and there's no contact. I don't know why it grew this way, but it shouldn't suffer because it's geometrically suggestive of a default or a defect. I think that perhaps if I could get Prudential to have a quick look at it and see what they thought in that building there, maybe they'd be willing to prune it or something.
I want to say thank you for what you do for the township and taking such a concerned look at all the trees that you do. I know that you're up and down the street a lot. You're looking out for the betterment of the trees, and I want to say thanks because it's important for the township to know that somebody's looking out for the trees. In this case, with the willow tree, it's a real cause for concern because of the lean, because of the history of the willows, that they do have a tendency to fall over. When I was on the site, the ground was very spongy, and there was large roots that were uplifted into the higher area of that lawn, and it was very spongy underneath. The tree's moving on it's just a floating surface there, where the water table is so high and it's just moving. It's leaning at about a 45-degree angle, and given the right conditions, it's just going to fall over. So
it's a 75-year-old tree.
That's the problem.
It hasn't leaned at all.
But it's on a 45. You saw the angle.
That's how it grew, which is the amazing thing.
And it keeps on growing that way, and that's the problem. The more it grows, the heavier it gets, the more chance of it's going to fall over going to be. And when it falls over, it's going to hit somebody, or it's going to hit something, somebody in a Prudential parking lot, somebody like yourself walking by, and that's going to be the issue. So it's just a matter of time, and we have to address that.
All right. Well, without arguing, because I'm a great debater, no one's complained about it. And if it fell, and this is just between me and the world, if it fell, it would be on an empty lot, because that is that strange lot behind the.
Sure.
And I wanted to point out that there's no mention in the code of a hazardous tree report. The only thing I could find relevant was Section 6 of your chapter, which says emergency tree removal. So really, the township has no basis. There's no basis in the code for these kind of informal hazardous tree removals. And the emergency tree removal, Section 6 of Chapter 263, simply says, in the event of immediate necessity for protection of life or property, may a tree be removed without a permit. So once again, is it possible for you to demand from the manager or someone that they get a application out of this person? And I certainly hope so. Do people typically, I know that, for example, this gentleman before me came in regarding the tree. It's an emergency. He's concerned that you don't meet in July. Do you meet in July? Oh, that's good. And last of all, do you know, did the people put in a arborist letter? Was there a formal letter from an arborist for these people? I see. Okay, thank you. Any chance of this? Any chance of reconsideration?
Again, in all consciousness, I don't think there is an arborist that would walk up to that tree and look at it and say it's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other business? Okay, speaking of hazardous trees, we had one at 216 Radnor Avenue. It was a 36-inch Norway maple on the front lawn, obviously declining very quickly, and that was approved. It was leaning over a house, and again, the tree was in decline. Alrighty. That concludes the June 2011 Radnor Shade Tree Commission meeting. Thank you.